can be in a nice suburban neighborhood with big yards and big driveways and nice cars and great restaurants and golf courses and all this stuff, and everybody in the neighborhood to be black. And that's just something I never ever experienced. But when I seen that, I think that was the main thing that got me in a sense of balance, because it's like, you belong here. This is who you've always been in your life. The thing is, there was just never a community for you to be in until now. And now you're seeing it, now you're experiencing it. And when I got to that point, I began to consider myself a member of the community. I'm still South Carolinian to the core, but I'm a member of this community. And so I call South Fulton home. I call the Atlanta metro area home.
Hi, everyone. This is Kirsten, and thank you for joining the Relocate Podcast. Today, we are joined by a very good friend of mine. He is a proud father, former educator turned construction inspector. He is a veteran. Thank you so much for serving our country, by the way. And he is just an overall great person, just here to share his experience about being in South Fulton, Georgia. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have today Jared Holloway. Yay!
Hey, y'all, what's up?
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm good, fine. Just waking up and getting to moving around right now.
Good. Okay. Well, I didn't really get to talk about how long you've been in Georgia. It's been what, 7 years, right?
Let's see. So remember I was in Statesboro before that, and that was 2015. So 9 years. But as far as the state of Georgia, because there's two things: there's the state of Georgia and there's Atlanta, and I'll talk about the latter later. But Georgia, I was born here in Athens. So I was here for about 2 years till I was 2 years old, then moved to Aiken. Came back in 2015 and been in the state ever since. So, so if you want to say 9 plus 2, 11, kind of sort of, but as far as my lived experience, then I'd say 9 so far, with most of those being the Atlanta metro area.
Okay.
And that was
So you
2017 to now. For those that don't know, South Fulton is in the Atlanta metro area. It's about maybe 10 miles south of the city itself. We're our own city.
Mhm.
We were formed actually the year I moved here. We were formed the year I moved here. Population 100,000. 90% of those are black. Median income is about around 50 or 60,000. So it's a middle class black community. You know, we got our own mayor, own city council, own police chief, and all those are black. All the mayor black, city council people are all black, police chief black, most of the cops are black, and most of the city services, just about all of those are black too. So it's a very 90% black city. Like this, it's the blackest city in America.
South Fulton.
Yes. They don't put us on the list yet, but they're gonna find out. Like I said, we got 100,000, so it ain't like one of these small towns that and I know. And we see them in Sacramento all the time. They got like maybe 1,000 people, and they're 90% black. But it's different than being like a full blown city with a city hall and a government and all that stuff. That's almost all staffed by black people, and it's middle class too, doing pretty well, and has more economic opportunity coming toward here too. So yeah, we're gonna be getting bigger soon.
So tell people where South Fulton, Georgia is located in relation to Atlanta.
Okay, so from downtown Atlanta, if you're taking 85 south, about 10 miles is to the left or to the west of the airport. That's where we at. So we're right below College
Okay.
Park, above Fairburn and Union City.
You know what? I didn't know that South Fulton had that type of community and culture. And I think that's pretty cool. I probably would have maybe considered staying in Atlanta a little longer if I would have known that.
Oh yeah, and
um,
and had you done that, you would have been at the right time, because everything was good before COVID. That really exploded everything as far as housing prices and all that kind of stuff. This place was the most affordable at the time that we bought this house. But things have changed. I mean, the value of our house went up, but I mean, as far as other people moving in, I mean, it's the same problem everywhere. It's just hard for everywhere for people to move in anywhere. So it's a little more than what it used to be, but still, I would say it's more affordable here than most other places in the city. I mean, I'm sorry, in the metro.
No.
So going to Cobb and Gwinnett and North Fulton and all these other places where you have neighborhoods like ours, but the thing is the price is so high. But here you get a good value for your buck, but it's not as expensive as like a suburban Cobb County or North Fulton or Gwinnett or North DeKalb County even. Those places are just they out of here.
Okay, wait. So when you talk about value,
hmm
what are we looking at? Like 200,000, like for a home, that is. Like what
Okay,
is
so
what does
like
that look like?
so the home we have now, we're in a single family unit. It's what they would call a starter home in most cases. The neighborhood is majority of people own their homes. We have a few that are renters, a slight few, but the value of this home was, I want to say, maybe 130 something thousand when we bought it. Um, right now, the value is maybe at 200,000, and that was from 7 years worth. So yeah, it's gone up in value a lot. I mean, and it's like a lot of other places. I think I've seen the same around the community where the value's gone up in that similar way, where it was affordable, but like I said, the value and um, has gone up at a pretty decent rate and better than what you see from a lot of black middle class areas. Because I think the thing people think about the black middle class, they think that they're better off or to the equal level to the white middle class, and it's really not the case because our houses on average don't appreciate like theirs does for a bunch of different socioeconomic and race reasons. Just clearly, there's a lot of research on that, but we are in a situation where we're not having to deal with that. But we have problems like everybody else, like having equity in our house and in our cars and stuff, but still having to pay for regular things. Where this just because you're middle class don't mean you're not struggling. I mean, I
You
think just about everybody of every class is struggling in some form of fashion. I know folks who got more than what I got that are struggling. Like it's inflation, interest, and wages have all gotten to the point where it's just harder on everybody post COVID than even what it was before. We had our problems before, but yeah, COVID just really exploded everything. And um, you know, but I would just say, at least on the equity alone, we are getting a profit, while other black people in the past in similar situations have seen a decline or a depreciation for various other reasons. And especially Atlanta,
interesting.
which I think they said the Atlanta metro area probably has the highest income gap in the nation, because like I uh, say about certain communities being top heavy, where you have your Beverly Hills and Malibu's and all this stuff, and then you got South Central, and it's like kind of like that dynamic. It's like you have these neighborhoods north of I-20 where they're doing very well and they have big value, profit, wages, all that stuff. When you come south I-20, it's a whole different story. Is that the wealth number, the wealth gap, what value you have as a family, as a unit, is very different on the south side versus the north side.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Nice little lesson for us today. I didn't
That and
I
then
didn't know that.
yeah, and then the color people change too. You get further up midtown, the color change too.
Okay. I didn't mean to laugh, but it's like the visual. Like if you've been for anyone who's ever been like to Atlanta, like it's like I've seen the city just change so much from like 2011 to now. It's astonishing.
And you were
And to see the
here right
visual
when
in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, you were here right when the change was happening because people, natives tell me that 2000s, that decade was like the height of Atlanta, of all of what we know it to be Black Mecca, but also the economic prosperity along with all that was at the best it was. And now what you have is the effect of the Olympics coming here. The diversity angles start to go because it's not even just white anymore, but you also have a lot of Latinos and a lot of Asians that have moved here, and they have their own neighborhoods and communities. I mean, you go to Gwinnett like the United Nations. Every single group you can think of
What?
is there. Yeah. So like South Gwinnett, that'll be more black and stuff like that. But you go to the different parts of the county, and it'll be majority Asian. You can go to some parts of Gwinnett, and all the signs in Korean, and ain't no signs of English. You can go to some parts of Gwinnett, and it'll be everything is in
Wow.
Spanish. I remember I got off on Jimmy Carter Boulevard one time. I was doing Uber. I had to get some gas, and I got off on this gas station, and all the signs was in Spanish. I go inside, and instead of having like the regular candy and hot dogs up, they had chalupas and tacos and stuff. And yeah, I was
Ah,
like, oh man, like we in Georgia now, like yeah, or we in
right.
Texas, or like yeah,
Viva
that like
la Georgia.
yeah, like it's Atlanta is becoming more international, and the growth of not just Hispanics. I mean, Hispanics are growing everywhere, but Asians. There's a lot of Asians coming here, and a lot of them are in the North Fulton area, Gwinnett area, and in Cobb too. But mainly, I see them in North Fulton, Alpharetta, Roswell, and I see them in Gwinnett because a lot of my coworkers at my construction site there, a lot of them are Asian too, and that's where they all stay.
Okay. Is Aiken seeing that type of expansion too? Like, I
No,
wonder.
and I
It's
can
not
tell you
that
about
far.
yeah, and it's not. I will say I'm glad it'll take me about maybe two. It should be 2.5, but with Atlanta traffic, maybe 3 hours to get home. Um, But Aiken and South Carolina as a whole is going a different direction because South Carolina, I just read it recently, South Carolina is becoming the new Florida. So older white people are moving down from up north. And instead of going to Florida, they want to go get the Florida beaches without the Florida prices. So they go to South Carolina. And so South Carolina is actually seeing the biggest white growth expansion of any state in the union right now. So
Oh.
those beaches, those places like where you from in the Low Country, those Sea Islands and Charleston and Myrtle Beach and Georgetown and Beaufort and Hilton Head, all that. They're getting a lot of people come in, a lot of land being bought up, and unfortunately, the Gullah Geechee people having to suffer for it. They're getting federal protections from the Biden administration and from Jim Clyburn and the stuff they're trying to put in, but they're still being taken to court to fight it. And so now you're having this whole land grab or this land fight going on with developers trying to develop more, make more golf courses. So of course they build golf courses, and guess what? Prices go up, and the people that live there for 200, 300 years can't live there no more. So, but anyway, that being said, Aiken is kind of going in the same direction too because um, it is becoming more of a retirement community as far as what they build. Um, Golf and horse racing is the big draw there. Which the horse racing is actually kind of nice because I like seeing horses around town and getting to see how they train and the races that we do in town. Steeplechase. That's the big horse racing event we have in Aiken, Steeplechase. They have one in the fall in October and another one in March, which is a big event in town. I don't go anymore, but it was a big day drinking thing, and I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing that no more. So, but
Right.
anyway, yeah, but anyways, that's what they bank on. So what happens is a lot of the younger, um, I mean, not just younger black people, I'd say younger white people too. They just leave because there's nothing for us to do. There's no industry, no kind of work for us to do unless you're a teacher. And like I say, you ain't having too many people trying to do that no more. Um, as far as a industry in Aiken that keeps people there, you either got the Savannah River site, which is a nuclear processing facility, um, or you got the Aiken County Public Schools. So either one or two. So if you're a nuclear engineer or really an engineer of any kind, or a teacher, then you got something for you. You go to Aiken. But um, well, I wouldn't even say that. Aiken is a very good school district, so it means they're very selective. So if you can't get one in Aiken, that means you're gonna have to go to like what I did, going to Allendale, Barnwell, or somewhere in one of those counties and stuff to get work. But yeah, so again, so there's limitations to what you could do. So me moving was probably inevitability. I didn't want to leave Aiken. I really wanted to, after I graduated, to come back home and be a member of my community, be a leader of my community, like the ones that I grew up on, and get back to the kids that I grew up with, their older brothers, cousins, uncles, and stuff like that. And when I went there the first couple of years, it was like that, But finding a full time job, that was the hard part because there wasn't really anything there for me. So I had to go to, like I said, Allendale the first year. Second year, I just subbed the whole year. I lived with my mom, and so I was able to just live off of that. And then the year after that, I went to Columbia, um, and like that commute was just too much, so I couldn't do that. That was when I decided to go back to college and go to Georgia Southern, and I'll save that for a little bit later. But when you're caught up in the economics like that, that's why people leave small towns, even if they really like being there. You just can't afford to stay because it's so limited in what you can do.
I'm glad that you touched on a bit about your experience as an educator, at least in South Carolina. Um, I'm curious though, what was the exact moment that you realized, okay, it's time to go, it's time to pivot?
Um, I think, well, I want to approach. I really didn't know whether I wanted to leave the classroom and do PE or whether I just wanted to get into the sports industry as a whole. But after leaving Columbia, Richland won. So for those from South Carolina, Richland won, and you know what that is. But leaving that, I wanted to do something that was more along the lines of what I wanted to do because at that time I was coming out of Clemson, coming out of Call Me Mister, and I was trying to do what they wanted because I thought it would still get me to the same place. But I saw I wasn't doing that. So I decided to go back to school and I wanted to get into something that was specifically sports related. And so that was me applying for grad school and applied for to Georgia Southern, Georgia State, and UGA. And I got into Georgia Southern, Georgia State. I chose Southern because it was closer. Um, and I ended up the thing was I didn't have no money. I had no real job at the time. I had just a part-time job, and that's when I ended up joining the military, and then joined the National Guard, Georgia, so I could, you know, be in school right there. And before I stepped foot on campus, I stepped foot in the MEPS to raise my hand and swear to defend the country back in old 2014, 10 years ago. But yeah, it was just you're looking at what kind of options you have and what realistic um, reality you have in living the life you want and the career you want. Because I still wanted to coach. That wasn't going to change. I guess it was coaching in the public schools or coaching at a collegiate level, which I was hoping I could do by being at Georgia Southern. But it didn't work out for various reasons or other. But um, I did end up going into coaching high school after I left Georgia Southern, but that's me going ahead of it. But the thing was, I know I want to do something that'll get me closer to coaching football at a um, advanced level because middle school was great, but at the same time, I don't think it gave me the skills I needed to understand football from a strategic standpoint, technical standpoint that I needed to get to, what I wanted to do, get to the college or even professional levels. But high school does more of that than what I could have done at that level. So that alongside me not wanting to be in the classroom anymore, those two things put together in 2014 is where I just changed the trajectory of my life.
You know what? Please forgive me because I didn't even mention in the beginning of this podcast about your extensive knowledge and skill set when it comes to coaching. I know you got a whole YouTube channel about
Yes.
everything you know about coaching.
Yes, I I ain't
So,
even think about plugging it, but I do have a YouTube channel. Look up Coach Holloway. Um, I have a YouTube channel where I do analysis and breakdown of film study and technique on different aspects of football, for or different levels of football from high school, college, and the pros. I get film from my high school days, film from college, the few that I can get because that's very hard to get, and then film from NFL. And I break down certain games, certain plays, or certain aspects that cause teams to win or lose games, and then also bring in some of my own personal coaching experience and terminology and stuff to tell a general audience how certain plays will come up with, how they carry it out, and what different things offensively and defensively teams are looking to do. This is coming from a high school assistant coach. I've never been a head coach. I never did coach above the high school level, but I can just tell you the foundations of what we do is the same thing you see in college in the NFL, because we're at a time now where basically you have the same playbook through all three levels. And if you told me 10 years ago that that would be the case, I would never believed it. But I mean, legit, you can look at a high school playbook and it's the same as the college and the NFL playbook. The only difference is maybe the
wow.
variation of routes, play directions, and formations you may see, but the kind of schemes that you run offensively is universal. The kind of schemes defensively are universal. Different rules may be switched depending on what level, and you got to understand high school kids don't process as quickly as grown adults can. So high school plays are a little more simplistic. But when you get to college and the pros, it's more of a mental game because the players there are already good enough to be there. It's just about getting them to understand film, the thinking, but also the visual aspect, what I'm looking at on the field and processing and analyzing from that. Um, yeah, going through the film both from practices and games um, as how players improve. And at the high school level, we started getting to the point where we recorded our own practices and then run those back in our film study as well. So players that I coached, I put them on. I put their highlight tape up there so that people can look at it. Coaches can look at it if they want to take a look. Even some players that I didn't coach but know who I am will send me stuff, and I put it on sometimes. Even some players from my alma mater, South Aiken High School, they got in contact with me to send me some of their stuff. And I've done some things. I hadn't done as much lately in the last year because, like I said, my career changed, which is unfortunate. But it's something I'm trying to improve on. Putting on content consistently, as you know, it's a hard thing to do. It's a lot of work to put in, and finding the time to do that and the motivation to keep on, week after week. It's a lot harder. Especially being husband, father, all those things. Add on to it, but it is good for me since I'm not coaching actively at the moment. It's good for me to be able to get that energy out some kind of way. So there'll be more coming soon, but I mean, I have a whole full library right now of stuff going from 2021 to last year's Super Bowl that you can look at.
So, is it safe for me to say that you left South Carolina to pursue a position that you feel more passionate about? Is that safe to say?
Yeah, yeah, I could say
Okay.
that. Which I mean, it went around through Georgia Southern first because it's different going from South Carolina to South Georgia because that there really is not that much difference. It's pretty much the same. But going
Okay.
from Statesboro to Atlanta, that's the difference. That's the really big difference there. And that, like I said, I can talk a whole lot more about that. And for people making that transition, I got a lot of advice, I got a lot of experiences, a lot of stuff that certain adjustments I had to make in my own life, my own personal belief system to even survive here.
We can touch on that too. So
Mm-hmm.
you pretty much you graduated from college. You were in Aiken for a bit, pursuing education. As a teacher. You also worked in different counties within South Carolina. You got to the point where you were like, okay, let me switch it up a bit because there's more I want out of this career trajectory that I'm on. Let me go ahead and move and to Georgia, not to South Fulton, but to Statesboro. Statesboro?
Yep.
Okay. Um, pursue education, uh, but in the way like you went back to school to pursue
Yeah.
education, more knowledge.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Um,
the degree was exercise science. It was a master's.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. And then you did the army partially to supplement your school funding,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually you ended up in South Fulton slash Atlanta,
Yeah. Well, actually,
right?
we were in
Okay,
Atlanta. We were in Midtown Atlanta first when I first got here, and we stayed here for about
gotcha.
my wife. She's my girlfriend at the time. Her apartment was in Midtown or around Grant Park, and that was an area which
Okay.
was one of those
Oh.
that was being heavily gentrified at the time. And so the little area she was in was, black, but everything around was, middle class white people building up homes and fixing up old homes and stuff like that. And it was kind of like that. It was the spacing was the big difference for me because coming from where we come from, it's everything's all spaced out and stuff like that. Um, but going into that to be an apartment complex and then going outside the gate and there's houses all stacked next to each other and the street is only so wide and you're driving out of that and I'm having to use GPS to go anywhere to the gym, finding the gym, number one, going there, going to get food to eat, McDonald's, Crystal, whatever, and discovering new restaurants and a new thing. Like it's just a lot to do just to commute alone to get to do basic things. Took a lot longer than what I was used to because I'm used to growing up. If it's 5 miles away, it's 5 minutes, and here if it's 5 miles away,
Mm,
30 maybe. And so that was a lot on me because of the time, but then also the rush too, because you're in different kind of traffic. Because that sign may say 35, but you ain't finna drive that. You're gonna go a little faster than that if you're doing it. And knowing that there are traffic cameras everywhere, and when they have a no parking sign, like they actually mean that. And yeah, this is just a lot. And being in Midtown, that's where I got the first full rush of what city life was like. Uh, so when I did that, um, I went into something that I do not recommend, but I went into self medication through alcohol. And so basically, the only way I could get this, because I was in such a rush, I had, I guess, somewhat anxiety or whatever. But the only way I could go to sleep, I just took a bottle to bed with me and just drank it until I, you know, passed out. And I was doing that for a while, and that didn't last long. Eventually, I started to realize what I was doing, and I was like, okay, can't do that. So I think it was around that time was when we moved to our house in South Fulton. So that kind of eased up things because South Fulton, if you come around here, it's further out from Atlanta enough to where there is more space and fresh air and some of what you would consider to be country. You got a lot of that out here, so that kind of eased me up a little bit. So that helped. But handling the anxiety, that was a big thing first coming in because it's just unless you've been grown up in that kind of environment your whole life, it's no way to describe how that rush can kind of just get to you and how you handle it. Um, is important and just learning to go along with the pace. So I know when I'm at home here, I know how it is, but I know if I got to go into downtown, I'm like, okay, here's what I got to do, what I got to look out for, who I got to look out for, and how I even interact with people. Because in my hometown, Aiken, I can go walk down the street, complete strangers. We meet eye contact. We say hey to each other. Um, and that's what we do. But here, you it's some of that here, but it's a lot more rare because you understand you have a lot of transplants here from other parts of the country, and especially a lot of folk from up north. So folk from New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, wherever they come down here and they bring their customs with them. So you can walk down and people ain't gonna make eye contact with you. They just gonna keep going, and it's like, oh, that's what it is. Okay, and then sometimes you do meet those rare people that'll do that. Well, my wife is a native Atlantan, by the way. She's one of the few people she knows that actually was born in, raised in, and still lives in Atlanta. It's rare you find folk like that here. But she says it used to be like that here, that people would had Southern hospitality, Southern traditions, culture, and all that used to be here. But with the last, couple of decades, that didn't change. So meeting those rare people that are like that, I had to just kind of, you know, do some army skills that I had to learn, and reading body language and who looks open to being approached and who don't. And then, Lord, going into some of these gas stations and some of these people sitting outside and they make eye contact with you and you thinking they want to say, hey, but really what they want to do is they want some money. Or they want to ask you for something, or they want to, yeah, it's all kind of, those kind of things, whether it be the Jays or the scam artists or the, whatever kind of, because, Atlanta took on the scam culture. So it's just really a lot of stuff you got to watch out for. And so me learning that, the trust that I used to have in people, I just don't have it no more. Because I'm always trying to read intent and see what people are really about now. Because I just been too many times in the city, I've been had.
Uh-oh.
So, you know, what I used to do, or like what cautions I take now, not the stuff that I felt that I had to take in Aiken, because I pretty much knew everybody. So I know, like, what I've been told is that, like I said, all these transplants came here, but they said that New York brought the scam culture with them, and that LA brought the Hollywood culture with them. So people looking for stardom, looking to get famous,
Oh,
and so with black,
oh,
so now this is Black Hollywood. Yeah, yeah, but you know what
yeah,
I'm saying. You know what I'm saying.
yeah.
So
So we,
this is now George. That's what it is. And then social media make it even worse because you can go online and just be doing that, getting famous and scamming people at the same time. So yeah,
and it's all because
it's
of
you
New
got to
York.
watch out for people here because it's and LA. Um, but yeah, but no, but the whole Hollywood thing, that's here too. They got Georgia. Actually, I think is number 2 now. I think they either surpassed California or New York. One of them they surpassed in Hollywood. I'm sorry, in film productions nationwide. Um, that started back in '09, but in 2009 they passed tax incentives for film studios to come to Georgia to film. And so one of the first ones they did was
Oh,
X-Men First Class. So that scene where they're on the beach in Cuba and they're fighting, that's actually Jekyll Island, Georgia, that they're fighting on. And then the film Hall Pass with Owen Wilson, that was filmed all in Atlanta. Even though it was set in New England somewhere, it was all filmed in Atlanta. But those 2 films were the first here, and then ever since then, MCU, other studios have come down to film here predominantly. Black Panther. Um, they built a Pinewood Studios, which is actually a British film studio. They built a Pinewood location here in Atlanta, in I think Henry County or Fayetteville. One of those down a little down south of me right now, but yeah, they have other black-owned film studios. People know about Tyler Perry Studios. That's obvious, but there are other studios that produce a lot of black films that are nearby. Some active, some not. One is in Union City, which is about 10 minutes away from me. Which Tyler Perry Studios is about 15 minutes away from me, and there's a bunch of other smaller studios that are in the city area too. So that has caused a surge in film production, but also with Black Hollywood, it's become the big thing. So a lot of the Tubi stuff you see is probably been filmed here, more than likely.
Okay. Yeah, that's a different Atlanta from what I experienced. Okay. Um, I want to touch more on your transition from like a small community to a bigger community. Because I mean, even Statesboro is pretty small, right? Um,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I can kind of tell, yeah, just from like you talking about your transition from there to the Atlanta area, and then you kind of like self-medicating to like deal with the transition process. How exactly was that journey for you? How was that
Well,
journey for
that
you?
part was the hard part. Just that part was the. You mean the well? So it was two stages to it because the first the anxiety portion. So getting used to the new pace. I mean, it happened pretty quick because like I had gotten it was a coaching job I got, and so I got that first, and I took off right away. So I had to get out of Statesboro. I won't say pretty abruptly because I was offered it, it was um, maybe June. I was still in the National Guard at the time, so I had to go out in the field for 2 weeks. I did that, and then when I got back, I packed up what I could, and then came up to Atlanta. And then, like I think toward the end of the month was when the lease was over. I had to go and come get the rest of my stuff, and so it was kind of dealing with bringing all those things in together. And I didn't have no job, but because I was out in the field that long, I had a big stake saved up, so I was able to support myself for that point until I was able to get, excuse me, a job with the DeKalb County School District at the time. But yeah, that all was it was a lot to do all at once. So it was the rush of that transition along with the rush of new city life all mixed in together. But I think the thing that kind of settled me actually was um, just being around the black community here because it ain't like other communities in other cities or states where Atlanta has its own thing. Where like there's certain times of the day or parts of town where I don't even see a white person at all, and that was new to me. Um, and then seeing what kinds of industry that we had here for us, built by us for us, and schools and businesses and neighborhoods and communities and all this stuff that just I wasn't used to seeing. I'm used to seeing maybe a few black people in leadership in some form or fashion, but I mean to see like a whole thing started by us, like I said, for us by us, like that was new to me too. But it gave me a sense of comfort and belonging that I had never felt ever living in the United States of America ever. And that I think was what kind of settled me into being more comfortable with the way things was because I was like, well, this is something I'm not going to experience nowhere else. And then the places that do have this go on, these are places that are not very, or communities that are not very um, well off financially. Because you can go to plenty of predominantly black cities and they say they're not doing well financially, or not like Atlanta is. It's just a thing because of different, like I said, social and economic and discriminatory factors that I don't have time to go into, but why they do black cities certain ways, and um, so it's always a thing with that. But anyways, they had built enough through the decades from Maynard Jackson on forward to the future to build what we have here, and so you can be in a nice suburban neighborhood with big yards and big driveways and nice cars and great restaurants and golf courses and all this stuff, and everybody in the neighborhood to be black. And that's just something I never ever experienced. But when I seen that, I think that was the main thing that got me in a sense of balance. Because it's like, you belong here. This is who you've always been in your life. The thing is there was just never a community for you to be in until now. And now you're seeing it, now you're experiencing it. And when I got to that point, I began to consider myself a member of the community. I'm still South Carolinian to the core, but I'm a member of this community. And so I call South Fulton home. I call the Atlanta metro area home. And what it provides me and what I know I wanted to provide for my son, our son, uh, is something that, I didn't get to experience, for him to get to see our people in every different station of life. So for him to know from, like I was talking about earlier, the people on the street and then the folks who are in power, and the thing is the choices you make can put you in those different situations. I don't want him to see one particular thing when it comes to um, um, black experiences. I want him to see it all. I want him to make good decisions, but know that there's a path for him no matter what, because not all of our children in this country get to see that. So, like I said, I think that got me balanced and settled in. Oh, and also, side note, there are all kinds of black people here too, not just black Americans, but Haitians, Jamaicans, Africans, Muslim, Christian, Jews, atheists, gay, straight, heterosexual. I mean, you name it, they got it. And that's the thing, because only other black folks I knew growing up was all folks who was from our community. But as far as seeing people from England with British accents who are black as hell, like that's just not something that I would grow up seeing. So, but yeah, the
Okay, gotcha,
diaspora is
gotcha.
here. And again, another thing I teach my son, that we're diverse within our blackness, within our diaspora from Africa. We have all different kinds of people, and he get to see all of it. Because I've worked with, taught, and coached Christians, Muslims, atheists, Jamaicans, African Americans, African immigrants. I mean, like I said, you name it, I've interacted with it at some point. And it's just not something that I ever thought I'd get to experience all in one place.
So South Carolina didn't have that same like cultural aspect
Ooh,
for you when you were in the teaching field? No?
no, no. Which
Okay.
it's not a bad thing either, because I love my people first. I like my Black American people first. I always gonna want to be with them first. But at the same time, I do want to interact with our other brothers from and sisters from other parts of the world. Um, and of other religions and stuff, because I do think that kind of gives you more of a world view on what solutions we can have for our community and build for our community, in a sense. So having both your Martin and your Malcolm together.
Were there any other differences that you've noticed in the education system in South Carolina versus Georgia?
Oh well, now I think about it, the white people are different. In South Carolina, they were conservative,
Oh.
and in Atlanta, they're liberal. So, like, I remember when I first found that
Oh.
out. If you remember where when Donald Trump called the NFL players who kneel sons of bitches, like the when he said that, I remember going into work because it happened on a Friday. I went to work on a Monday, and I overheard a bunch of white teachers talking about it, and they were just disgusted at what he said, talking about how could he say something so despicable about players like that just because they're standing up for the rights of black people. And I'm like, you know, I didn't want to say nothing because I thought that they were going to take Trump's side, but no, they were like, no, I ain't with that. But I did, because the thing is, I don't understand. You don't understand until you live in a big city that there's majority, Democratic or liberal as far as, or left leaning as far as people's belief system. So the white people, I mean, they're different in their own way, but they're mostly going to be Democratic. If they're into Republicans, they probably ain't going to speak out loud. But even if they are, they probably will be more of like the moderate kind of, the fiscal conservatives. Yeah. So yeah, that political difference, that's a big thing too, because um, being from Aiken is majority Republican, um, and here is majority Democratic. But then also the state in general, as soon as I moved here, became a swing state. And so a lot of people come here now whenever there's a big election, whether it be governors or Senate or presidential race, especially presidential race because of the electoral college. You always have people here. Kamala Harris had actually been to Atlanta about 17 times, and now that Biden is off and that she's
Mm-hmm.
on, this state, people were predicting the state to go to Trump. Now they got to rethink that because the poll numbers, as you see, they're tightening up. So it's those, like Trump said, it's them 11,780 votes, a difference, that's going to make the difference here. So who's better to take that? That's why she was here, with the fight for that 11,780, that small difference you're going to have in the state. So that has, my political engagement has been, I don't want to say it's increased, but the thing is, I just see it going a lot further because now I'm voting and the people I'm voting for are actually winning. And that's something I never experienced either.
I don't think a lot of people consider politics when they move for work. And I think that has a lot to do
Yeah.
with, who's on your team and having feeling comfortable with the people that you work around and the work that you're doing, not only for yourself but for others. I think that, to me, that matters a lot, but I never really considered it until maybe a few years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Trump made everybody
being
consider
in
it then.
Texas.
Because that,
Yeah.
yeah, Texas too, which Texas, I think, it's not going to happen now. I think they're going to turn blue turn purple at some point, maybe within the next decade, because the demographic numbers are just going that way. Um, I can't say when it'll
Yeah.
be, but Texas looked a lot like what Georgia did. Yeah, Texas looked like what Georgia did a couple years ago. So it'll be, but I guess the thing is, those things, they didn't used to matter so much. And I'm not saying that people should move to a place just because of stuff like that. But I will say, if you're involved in the community like I am, or you're concerned about what kind of resources that you have, what kind of rights that you have, I think it does make a difference because you want to know that you have a realistic, a legitimate voice in your own um, future and in your own community and stuff like that, and your own safety, and especially now with if you're a woman, your own body autonomy. That does mean a lot, and it's probably meant more than what it did in the past because now people are going to the root of civil rights that or human rights stuff that used to be something we talked about 50, 60 years ago, but now it's come back. Um, so yeah, it is. It shouldn't be that way, but that's just kind of the world we in right now, and so you have to factor that in. Like I don't want my son uh, knowing that his congressman was the guy that told Obama "you lie" in the State of the Union address, because that's who my congressman was when I was in Aiken. Joe "You Lie" Wilson. That's what I call him. But yeah, but now my Congress. Well, I'm sorry. I'm going to have a congresswoman this coming election because Lucy McBath is going to be in my district now, so she's pretty much going to win.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so seeing my ballot and seeing a bunch of black people on it, that's another thing that never thought I would see, but seeing it. Um, all right, so let me give a warning because I know some people are gonna say something about this. I'm not saying just because somebody black means that they're good for you or for your community, especially politically.
Oop.
You got to hold everybody
Right.
accountable, no matter who they are, what they look like, what party they with. But at the same time, I will say that I have an audience with these people that I wouldn't have if there was some Trumper there, and that's just basically what it is. So, um, knowing that at least the people that you got on the ballot are at least legitimate and not going to challenge the election or deny it or set a storm the Capitol if they don't get their way. Like those are things that I'm glad I'm in right now because I moved here right when Trump became president, so I didn't get to see how it affected my hometown and people's relationship with each other. All I know is that my friend group got real small afterwards, and so a lot of the white people that I was friends with, Back in the
Oh,
day, I think it might be maybe 3 of them left.
wow. Interesting.
Hmm.
It's interesting. See the truth just come to light like that. All because of one person,
Yeah.
really, if you think about it. Right. And, and I'm glad that you're speaking to your involvement in the community and how people can be involved and how these actions can affect them not only as a resident, but um, if you're working in the same area that you're living in, I mean, those decisions can impact the way that you make your money. So I don't think people really think about
Hmm.
that when they say, oh, I'm not voting because it doesn't matter to me. Oh, it might not matter to you. It might matter to your pockets, though. Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, it's
So,
gonna affect you.
yep. Uh, what are some other ways that you're involved with the area that you reside in?
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I can do better. I want to do better, but it's about finding balance in my new life and my new
Hmm.
situation. But before I was involved by being a football coach, being in the schools, um, coaching guys through the game, but also providing some mentorship and being a resource for them for um, all kinds of things for school or for other stuff. Um, the one thing I get involved with every now and then is a program called Black Man Lab. It is a meeting of black men. You don't have to be in the South Fulton area. They can be all over the city, but they come together and they come for joint sessions, informational sessions about things like mental health, economics, politics, community involvement, um, trades, jobs, all these other kinds of things, all these aspects of life, but to give black men a sense of community together, brotherhood, but also connections to get them to where there's a better station in life or whatnot. Because I've seen guys get jobs on the spot just from being at these things. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, I've seen guys going in for work. They told somebody else, and one person told the group, and they're like, "Hey, man, give me a number. I got something for you." And like I legit seen that happen. Um,
Mm.
we even had some celebrities come in sometime. One day, and I missed it. It happened. I went the week before, and I missed the next week. But y'all know who he is. His name is Bill Duke. He is a director and actor who is most well known for his role in Menace to Society. He was playing the police
Okay.
officer that told him, said, "You know them fucked up, right? You know that, right?"
Ooh.
That was him. But anyways, he was at the meeting the next week, and I missed it. I didn't find out until I saw their Instagram page that he was there. And I'm like, shit, should have went. But yeah. But anyways, that got me to introduce me to a lot of new people that I got to meet to um,
Okay.
see what's going on in the community and what kinds of activism they do, because they do a lot of activism for people based on community needs, whether it be people who are impoverished or black people who are being discriminated against or being mistreated by the police or something like that. That them brothers will show up and they will get involved. And I remember one time they actually went up to um, Emory University at Eggleston Children's Hospital. There was this little black girl who was at the Eggleston Children's Hospital. She had some kind of severe condition, and I don't know if her insurance ran out or what, but they were going to take her off the machines and basically kick them out the room. And so Black
Oh,
Man Lab,
wow.
they got all the brothers together and they protested in front of the hospital. And it got so bad, the news came out. It got so bad, the hospital administrator said, "Okay, we're going to keep her on. We're not going to kick her out. We're going to keep her on until she gets the treatment she needs and is able to go on by herself." So,
Right.
like that alone showed me the power of what that's the power of what we can do when we, put our when we get together for a righteous cause and stand strong together. But yeah,
I love that.
but other than that, yeah, I that's why I like going back to them because they don't really try to influence you either way. They just it's all about the community.
Mhm.
I mean, and this ain't a place because it's a all black male space. It wasn't a place where I saw them talk negatively about other groups of people. Like they don't talk about white people or other groups of people. They don't talk about women in any disrespectful terms. They only speak to the
Love
power and the
that.
uplift of black men, and that's all they speak to. And you don't, and like I said, there's no negative stuff other than them saying what problems we have with each other and what we can do to change that kind of stuff around. So that's it helped me a lot at the time that I was having to deal with certain stuff in the education system. Um, but um, I could do more with them. I've done some things with them, but I could do more. Um, and also, I attend community meetings here in South Fulton. So I've been to city council meetings. I've been to some other presentations where you've had city council people give presentations about whether it be new police uh, training things or allocations of money going to different projects. And of course, city council meetings are just like your standard city council you'll find in any community in America, where you find out what they're trying to pass as far as laws or what kind of businesses they're trying to bring in and stuff. So I've gone to a couple of those because I felt that knowing what's going on in my community is important. And so if there's a meeting that they advertise for public, um, um, you know, attendance or public commentary, then I make sure I go. I don't make no public
Okay.
commentary myself, but I do sit in to see. And so knowing of some of what the future is going to hold, since, I'm in construction now, um, I'm interested in what kinds of projects are coming to our area because I know what it takes from the beginning. Because the project I'm on right now was a big highway project, which is in its first 2 years. It's in its beginning stages, which is probably going to last until maybe 2027, 2028. So yeah, it's going to be a long, long project. But seeing how that goes, how it begins, I do like to see those things from a inspector's perspective, and to know what kinds of good change or possibly negative change it could bring about. Because if it's controversial or something like that, normally it's going to be on the ballot. And so in next year, 2025, I'm probably going to see something about another project on the ballot of what I saw in the meeting this a couple weeks ago. So that's my way of kind of putting my ear to the ground and knowing, what the deal is. And which like I said, I encourage everybody in every community to do the same. But I'm just glad that I live in a community where I actually have a voice that actually, goes somewhere. Because usually what I feel is what most of the people that live around here feel the same way. So, um, yeah. So it's still, I think I'm trying to get back into coaching. When my son gets older, I want to go back into coaching. And so um, I think that's my best method of being involved with the community, with the youth, is through that, because I feel I'm best served when I'm actually coaching, because that's me. That's my personality. That's
Yeah.
who I am. I don't have to hold back on language or words I say or phrases I say, um, and stuff like. There's no a code book for what I have to do. I do whatever the head coach allow me to do. Hmm.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Because I was getting ready to ask you, like, where do you see yourself, in the next 5 years? I know you have a son. He's still quite young. Not exactly at the point
Hmm.
where, you can just put him in the school system and, you have that few hours of the day to work on yourself. But um, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So if you've ever seen The Wolf of Wall Street and you remember that scene where Leo DiCaprio was like, "I'm not fucking leaving. I'm not going nowhere." Yeah, that's me. I ain't going nowhere. Um, this is where I'm staying. Ain't nothing going to change with that. I may want to move to another neighborhood nearby where I stay right now, but one with a little bit more space, because I mean, you've been to our house, so you know our yard is kind of it's okay, but it's a little small. Houses are a little closer together. It's I could use more space, more driveway space. more lawn space. And there are plenty of places, like I said, nearby where they have that. So going to something like that within the next 5, I don't know. But I mean, if I find a financial opportunity that could work, I want to do that. But as far as my career, my day job, I love what I do. I left education and I went into the engineering field. Um, what I do is a construction inspector. And so what I do is I look at all of the construction. My particular industry is highway construction. So that would be roads and bridges, basically, and any kind of drainage that comes from that. So I check to make sure that
Okay,
everything
gotcha.
is up to code according to the plans, according to the GDOT, the Georgia Department of Transportation standards. Um, I take up the amount of materials used through paperwork that they give me, that the contractors give me. I give it to our people so that they know what they pay out to the contractors. So yes, a lot of record keeping, a lot of um, hands-on, watching, not just overseeing, but just kind of looking to make sure things go the way they're supposed to go. But anyway, that's the level I'm at now. The level I'm at is called inspector aide. What I'm doing right now, I'm taking certification classes to get to what's called Inspector One, which is they just call it inspector. That's just
Okay.
what they call it. But that would be both a raise. It would be a raise both in pay alongside the raise I automatically get, the step raises I get per year. Um, in another 2 years, I would get to Inspector Two, and then after another 2 years of that, I would get to senior inspector. So that would be about 5 years from now, I would say, to get to senior inspector. So by that point, I would get a salary which would be at where we currently are at would be enough for us to live comfortable. Um, so working back up to that because one thing about this job, which I didn't tell too many people, which I mean, some folks need to know. If you're a teacher and you're transitioning, you probably need to know this too. I took a pay cut for this job, and I didn't think I would. But the thing is, at the end of the day, where I can go in 5 years is a lot further than what I could do 5 years in education. So, um, plus, I didn't want to be there no more. So, sometimes you may have to take a step back in order to take a step forward. And that's for anybody. But I guess the thing is, to what level you can do that, you have to look at it yourself. I would say if you're going to do it, I wouldn't go more than maybe 8,000 less per year than what you make now. I would say maybe that around that figure, maybe like 8,000 less. I think that's what you should do. I wouldn't go no further than that. But sometimes you can get another job and get more money. So I mean, it's what it is. It's different for people, but don't shy away from it because you know salary's not what you're used to. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take patience. But I just know I feel good when I get up and go to work in the morning, and I feel good when I get off, and I feel good when I'm on the job too and doing things. Like I really wish I would have went to school for this because I
Hmm.
feel more. I actually feel the same kind of enjoyment with this that I do in coaching because engineering and construction, it's like you're getting a different type of problem every day that you have to complete or to overcome. And it's kind of what football is. Every week you have a different opponent and you have to approach them in different ways and you have to re-strategize and stuff. And that's the fun part of it is that things are moving forward. But most of the jobs you get, and it's like the same thing every day. It's kind of hard, especially if you have other responsibilities too. So that's the sacrifice on my end. But I know if I keep at this, that it's going to have a payoff, better than what I had before. So, you know, I ain't going to trade nothing with this. It is what it is. But I know that I'm making myself um, better with each experience I have. Each day I get in, I learn new things. Each certification I get, like I said, gets me to that level. And there's a real track towards an upward mobility that you just don't have in education. Like you're a teacher, like what, are you going to go into administration or what? That's it. Because there's no other than just you staying in for as long as you do, your salary goes up, but not by much. So my raise, my first year, my raise was 3%. And when I was teaching, the most I ever got was 1.5%, and that was because of COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And APS found out why they were losing people. So recently, they now decided that for now on, the starting teacher salary in APS will be 60,000, which is extremely high for that kind of position. But given being in Atlanta, it's unnecessary because they were losing people, so they had to do it. So I applaud them for doing that. It's the right thing to do. But I will say, unless that salary increase comes with respect, then you're still going to be in the same position you was in there because you can pay people more. But the thing is, if people don't feel respected and they don't feel useful or feel they're contributing anything to their students' lives, the school itself, and their own lives, then people are not going to want to be there, no matter how much you pay them, because there's a limit. I mean, because we pay
Right.
attention to what the students do. That's the big headline all the time. But what you don't see on the back end is what how the district, the school board, how administrators treat us. If you give me a moment, I want to tell one story. Um, why I'm not in education no more.
Go for it.
There's a lot of reasons, and like I said, administration was the big one. But there's one story that I feel I have to share because people need to know what I was dealing with. So, um, the last school I was at, the one that I got out of, I had left from DeKalb and went to this school in APS. So when I was in DeKalb, I was coaching another high school. Um, and so one of my players there, he was a senior, 17 years old. He died one day, really early in the school year. He died.
Oh.
He was 17 years old. He had asthma issues, and I knew about him because I was his position coach. So like whenever he do, I always used to talk to him and tell him about how he needs to manage his asthma, taking his pump at least 30 minutes before coming out here, and all the stuff I went through with him. But he had an attack so bad
Yeah.
that he died from it. And yeah, that hit me pretty hard because, like I said, I was his position coach. So you know, I was um, I was pretty hurt about that. But anyway, so the coaches there at the school, they let me know when the funeral was and all this stuff. And so I did, the normal thing where I put in the time and told my principal what was going on and said I was doing this and that. And she, when I first told her about it, she was sympathetic and she, um, didn't have a problem with it as far as me going. Um, but so here's what happened. So the funeral comes up. The funeral is on a Friday. In education, they have what are called critical days. And so critical days are Mondays and Fridays. And the thing is, they don't want people taking time off on them days because they don't want people getting 3-day weekends. I don't know why or what the difference is, but anyways, that's the way they feel about it. They don't like people taking off Mondays and Fridays. And so they require more than your average, time off request. So my principal, um, she sent me an email and said that because the funeral was going to be on a Friday, that she wanted me to give her a picture or a screenshot of the obituary for the funeral and send it to her as proof that that's where I was going to be.
Whoa, hold on. What?
Yes, yes, that happened. I was in shock when I read it, but I did it anyway because I was going to do whatever I had to do to get to the funeral. I wasn't finna let nothing get in my way. But you have to, whatever position you're in, whatever power you hold, whatever influence you have to remember to be a human being. And even if you have this responsibility and stuff like that, you have to have a sense of knowing what's right and what's wrong and what grief is and what that means to people. And to have somebody have to relive something like that, a child dying, which which I don't know if you've ever been to a funeral like that, but it's one thing when old people die and people at funerals sad, but when it's a child dying, that's the worst, one of the worst funerals you can ever go to because of the pain people feel is just so different. But yeah, I remembered that, and that wasn't the year that I left either. This was the year before, but I remembered that, and I still remember that to this day as a cautionary tale to tell people who are ascending into power about who not to become, and to remain humble, and to know that you're working with people who have real lives and real feelings and real problems, and that whatever that uh, handbook says you have to do, sometimes you got to throw that out and do what's right, especially in education. Education above all. You can have a handbook, but the thing is, people are dynamic, especially children. And we're at a point where in education, administrators are so caught up in their roles and their nice salaries and nice cars and nice houses that they stick with the game plan, but don't have any real heart to really change things for the better. Oh, I'm sorry. APS is Atlanta Public Schools. I'm sorry. But yeah, that all that put together, and mind you, I was teaching martial arts at the time, which was uh, revolutionary because no one had ever had a martial arts program as a core class before, and I did it, developed my own program for it, um, and they took it away from me after the first year and put me in regular PE, which is
Oh,
fine. I want to be a PE teacher anyway, but I want to be a PE teacher anyway. Always had, but I didn't want it that way, especially when you had this thing, which could have been revolutionary to education across the nation, and you take it away after 1 year. Um, and you take that away, you put me in PE, you change the age group I was working at. So yeah, my patience was tried with that one. But that kind of just fumbling around, the micromanaging, the disorganization, the second guessing, the lack of respect that you get from the students, the parents, the community, the administrators, all together, all those, it was just too much to handle. And I said at 2023, I said at the end of this year, I don't know where I'm gonna be, but I ain't gonna be here. Um, but yeah, but all that set aside, but that whole thing with the funeral, that you know that gets to me to this day. But I think it's an important story for people to hear because whether it's not just education. I mean, there's other people that are like this around. As far as employers, there's a lot of people that are similar, but it's like we got to take a look back and say, what are we doing? Like, is the point of me being a boss to be um, a asshole, or am I supposed to be a leader? What am I in the position for? When you lead with wisdom and experience. You don't lead on a handbook. That's asshole type behavior. You um, really have to really know yourself through different stages in your life because the stress that different different things that happen to you, you don't want it to change you and who you are and what your values are. Because the stress of being an administrator, it is stressful, but you can't be turned into an asshole because of it. You have to be a people person in education because it's people you're dealing with. It's not numbers you're dealing with. It's people you're
Yeah.
dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
Kids, children you're dealing with. And sometimes you have to do hard
Parents
things
too. Dealing with
for the
parents.
kids' benefit. And parents, you have to do hard things for the kids' benefit uh, that they may not like but are necessary for them. Because, like, one thing I'll say about that school, they would kick folks out, which I was glad to see that. So if a child was acting up the whole year and had no improvement, got rid of them. But the thing is, no matter what kind of school district you in, what income level you in, there's problems there. You can go to a rich white rich white public school and have problems there. It'll look different, but there are problems there. I done seen it. But yeah, it's just got to the point where the problems are bigger than the solutions, and we need to look for solutions and not try to just destroy everything like some folks want to do, whether it be the Department of Education or vouchers or all these other things. I know we need to fix the problem. I'll go down the list, but the
Yeah.
adults are really the problem.
Yeah. People don't leave jobs, they leave management.
That and people don't get into teaching for money. Nobody goes into education to get rich. They go in there because they want to
Mm.
make a difference in their community, and a difference in kids' lives. But you can breed that out of somebody. I mean, I was in the job that I always wanted to be a PE teacher, and they made me hate it. And I'm fine now. I'm happy now, but I think it's horrible that you take somebody's passion and you just turn it into pain like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I am
I'll
so
still
sorry to
coach.
see you had that experience.
Yeah, yeah, I'll still coach. That ain't going nowhere. But yeah, I ain't ever working as an educator again. Even because people say, "What about private school?" No, no, because that's a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of stuff they do I don't like either. So
And I'm
yeah,
glad that you shared that
you
story. I am.
yeah yeah. People need to know. They need to know, and they need to sit back and reflect, and say, "How can I not be that person?" Because I made
Oof.
sure when I got into this job that that would never be me.
This is heavy. That's heavy. Having to go from
Yeah,
something that you worked for this. I mean, I literally seen you, go through 4 years of college education, learning about, how to be the best teacher that you can be. And you were heavily involved in Call Me Mister, which for those who are listening, you're wondering what he mentioned earlier about Call Me Mister. I mean, that's a great program for people of color, for men of color to transition into the education field. It's all throughout South Carolina, different
it's
cohorts.
nationwide.
But then, oh, excuse me, nationwide.
Yeah, they ain't
He's on
just
your side.
they ain't
Okay.
just South Carolina. They I because I haven't been involved with them in some time, so I don't know how many it is, but I know at least up the Eastern Seaboard they have chapters all over, and they have some in the middle of the country,
Okay.
Missouri, Kentucky, um, and different schools have
Oh,
cohorts based on their campuses. But Clemson was the flagship program was in Clemson. No, I'm sorry, no. The headquarters was in Clemson, but the flagship programs were actually at the HBCUs. So South Carolina State, Claflin, which I believe Claflin may have been the first cohort, and then of course Morris College and
okay.
um, what's the other one? Allen and Benedict have them now, but they didn't have them before. But if there was another HBCU I'm thinking of, I'm drawing a blank now who had it that I just can't remember.
South
But
Carolina
yeah,
HBCU
I
or
think
Georgia? Okay.
just South Carolina because they were all in South Carolina at first, but all the South Carolina, the bigger HBCUs, they had them first. Clemson didn't get their program until maybe 4 years later, but it was headquartered there for the entire time. It still is,
Okay.
but it's national now. So um, I hadn't seen how the program has gone. It's one of those things where I say, like what you mentioned, if you have a passion for education, and not just like a side interest or something like that, you want to really know that education, that's your thing, that you are in it, no matter what it is, no matter what happens. I say that's the program for you. If you're uh, uh, well, it used to be just black males at the time, but now they, men of color, they um, had to do that now because of laws and discrimination, all this other stuff. But anyways, but I think it's a good program if you're going to go into that field and be serious about it. If you're kind of like on the fringes, whether you kind of think about education, I don't think it's for you because it's very heavily focused on elementary, special ed, um, and actually, and early childhood, which would be like pre-K and kindergarten stuff like that. But yeah, those are the areas that they mainly focus on. So if you're a PE teacher or like a high school math teacher, like that's not necessarily that's not the thing for you. Um, it's a good program, but I think I might have or should have done something else. Like I was saying, like I said, I should have been in a different field. But if I was going to do education, it should have been just straight PE for me, since that's what I really wanted to be in. But yeah, if you want to be an elementary special ed or early childhood teacher, and you're black, Hispanic, or Asian, or whatever male, but I just tell people the blueprint, and they have to make the decisions on their own. I break it down. I take the flesh off and I show the skeleton, and you have to make a determination for yourself. What you are willing to go through, or what you accept or won't accept, and that's up to you. I became a father, and I said I want to be here for my son all the way, and it's very hard to do that, and to also be in charge of 100 other students. And it's very hard to go into a job that you hate and then go home to your son and try to teach him to take pride in what he does. You know, it's those things along with all the other stuff I thought about. I'm like, I want my son to see me happy because I don't take nothing away from mothers, but fathers are important for a home. And having a present, healthy, involved father is a big boost in whatever you can be in your life. Um, and keeping the family together, that nuclear family together, because both me and my wife, we didn't grow up with that. Um, Parents were married when they had us, but they didn't stay married for long. So um, me me and her wanting to do that for our son, that's a big thing, and why we do what we do too. We want to make it work because we want to see what we didn't get to experience ourselves. So um,
I
if
get
it
it.
couldn't, yeah, if it couldn't mix with that, if it couldn't allow that to happen, or if it couldn't allow that to go, um, smoothly, especially on my end, because if I'm not together, then nothing, nothing's going to be right. Because at least my wife can, fall on my shoulder, and I can comfort her, I can help her. But to have to carry on a man, that's very hard to do. I wouldn't ask a sister to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like again, it's not putting down
Thank
women at
you
all.
for
It's
sharing that.
uplifting. Yeah, It's uplifting men. That's what I want to do. I want to talk to young brothers about loving themselves, having self esteem for themselves, so that they can be the best they can for whatever woman they have in their life. And women are attracted to that too. They like happy men. They don't like
Yeah.
men who are sad and depressed.
Yup.
So being
Yup.
confident in yourself, loving yourself, that attracts women, and um, but it also makes you better for them because you don't want to be a burden on them. I mean, you don't. I mean, women shouldn't be burdened on men either.
That
I'm
part.
not. What I'm saying is that it looks different. You know what I mean? It looks
Yeah.
different. So and which I'm not perfect. I mean, I have my days too. But the thing is, I know that, and I try my best to improve all the time. And even in this time I'm in now, in a new career, new lifestyle, new environment, new you know living space. I'm coming around and trying to adjust to things because you're never all 100% perfect. So that's the other thing. You ain't never going to be perfect. There's only one perfect man ever lived, and he ain't here right now. So you know, outside of that, man, you got to always be a learner. Always look for something to improve on. Always find a way to make yourself useful. Um, you know, uh, that's just what it's about. It's about trying to be better every day. I mean, I'm speaking to men right
Do
now,
you
but I
want to?
mean, it goes along with everybody too.
Yeah.
Everybody.
No, I'm glad you're touching on like every aspect, really. Um, do you want to touch on how you've been able to cope or deal in a healthy way with the because you've transitioned so much or so many times, like from one career to another.
Hmm.
And then you went from, being single, dealing with this, to now being married and with a family and, dealing with the ebbs and flows of your career and your family life and dynamic changing drastically throughout all of that. So what else are you doing to just, manage your overall mental health? Um, I think that's important.
Yeah. Um, which I didn't say earlier, but by the way, for those who wonder, my son is 2 years old, so that's why we're saying he's so young. But yeah. Man, I don't know if I told or wrote down my life story, I don't think people would believe it because it's gone so many different places. Like that's why I was talking to you earlier about Governor Tim Walz, who's on the ticket with um, VP Harris now. His life was mine, except he did it longer. Being a teacher and a soldier and a coach all at the same time, you if you can do that, you can deal with pretty much anything. You ready to lead, you ready to do anything because you've done everything. I did what I had to do in whatever span of life I was in, from going to school, graduating, trying to find a way to make a living afterwards. All of it really I did was just so I could coach. That's really what it was based around, was how can I get um, a living wage to supplement myself while I'm coaching. And that's what all this stuff was, is to get myself closer to that. And so I did. Um, I coached at the level I want. Well, I'm sorry, no, I didn't finish at the level I wanted to. I did coach at a high school level, which was a level that I thought was significant enough to um, make me better educated in the coaching profession and coaching football in particular. But I wanted to go further, but I had to think about it now. I'm like, if I was to die today, could I say that I did what I said I wanted to do years ago? And technically, I did. I didn't get to the level I wanted to, but I did what I wanted to do. I became a PE teacher and a football coach. I did that. And I guess it's for whatever comes next in my life, can I be happy with that? Or can I try to go further than that? Um, I don't know. I just know, at least for the job itself, I know that's not a problem no more. So I can be fine with that. And everything else just comes as it's available. But I think it's kind of a mixture of going back to your question. It's kind of a mixture of being able to accept what has happened and try not to think about what could have gone this way or that way or whatnot. Just sticking into the present. Say, well, this is what happened. This is what led up to this. This is the present. Now, what can I do to make the future look the way I want it to look? And that's the second part. And so that's the part I'm trying to figure out now. Um, I think that my life and the careers I've had have all given me the kind of experience that would make me better able to handle the world, really. Because if you've done the things I've done from the classroom to Afghanistan during war and on the gridiron in football, you pretty much covered all the bases of what I would consider to be the hardest jobs in the history of the world. And so everything else from that is not so bad. You can manage it. Um, but yeah, it's just having patience and doing whatever you can to handle your present situation, not worrying about the past, thinking on the future, but not trying to push that too much, but being at your pace. You pace yourself. And if the pace pick up, you pick up with it. So being in Aiken is a certain pace. It's slow. It's very predictable. You notice all the people on the road there. You know who they are, and you're gonna see them again. Um, Atlanta's a whole different. It's a little quicker, so I had to get quick with it. And having to be okay with things not working out and trying to make things work out in another circumstance. Um, yeah, it's just about the now, handling the now. I would say just handling the now because your future's going to look good if you handle things good now and do the best you can right now. Can't change the past. You can do something about the future, but as long as you make the right decisions today and do the best you can today.
Based on your experience, what advice would you give someone who's looking forward to moving from an area with slower pace to city life?
Um, it helps when you have people who already live there. That's a big thing. So family or friends or people who can help you adjust. I say that's the biggest thing for me. Having my wife, then girlfriend, at the time to kind of adjust me, and her mother lived with us then, still lives with us now. She's from a small town in Georgia, so she had to deal with it herself decades ago, but she had to deal with it herself. So the two of them really helped me get there. If you don't have that, I think the thing for you is to make friends. Which I mean, I know that's not easy for all kind of people, but I think making friends and having somebody to basically introduce you to stuff is a big thing. It's the people thing. It's about the people you come to meet, and the people that you have discernment. Know who you can trust, and that's a big thing. But me having people to introduce you to the culture, say this is the way it is. It's not like for me with Afghanistan, we didn't have that. We had briefings before we even left America about what Afghanistan was like, what the culture was like, and what you have to watch out for, and how to be respectful of their culture, and how to watch for things like weapons or bombs and stuff like that. And all these kind of things that we had to learn. There's no you. They have sometimes they have things like that, on the internet where people give you guides and stuff to see this. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily go about that. I think people should experience things for themselves and learn on their own. But having that guide, that person that you feel you can trust, that you have a good relationship with, that guide, that's the person that's going to get you there. Their support group. And I would say call home often too. Talk to family and friends and just kind of get a sense of where you've been, and that's the balance of being you who you are versus the person you have to be in this environment. So relationships with people here and relationships with people there, you have to keep those in mind and balance. You know, which sometimes that can get out of balance too, because that's something I can improve on. As far as going home more often, talking. I talk to my family enough, but I mean I could do a little bit better job. So, um, you know, it is you have to be a people person, and if you're not a people person, maybe you should try to find some skills or some ways or some uh, classes you can take to be able to do those things. Because luckily we're in an age now where they have a TED Talk for everything, and a online course or in person
Right.
course for everything to be a people person. Because I never was a people person growing up. I don't think maybe when I came here, I think that changed where um, I wouldn't say necessarily outgoing, but I mean I can go to any place and just talk and get to know folks and talk in front of a crowd. Like it's not a hard thing for me to do anymore. Um, I think age has helped with that and an experience, and um, you know, finally feeling a sense of comfort. Even though I'm a small town person in a big city, I can still find a way to feel confident in that because I'm proud of where I come from. I'm proud of the values that came from. I ain't going back to live there, but I still hold that pride in being who I am and being here. Um, well, I always told people, I said, growing up, I said, boy, I would never live in Atlanta. I'd never live in no place like that. That's just too much for me. But here I am. And just the
Here
way
you are.
the economy is, yeah, the way the economy is, sad to say, but a lot of small town people, they probably going to have to move to a big city for the opportunities. Because like I said, back home, it wasn't there.
Now that you're relocated, like you're very much well settled in South Fulton, Georgia, what words of advice would you provide to the version of yourself that was in South Carolina?
Whew. You know, that's a tough one because it goes against what I just said about, and I think about the past because I would have gave myself different advice on um, career path, school choices, and all this other kind of stuff. But I think the thing is I guess the main thing I can say is just to be calm. That if something bad happens, it ain't the end of the world. It ain't the end of you. That there's a way out and a future beyond that. Because um, I think I see um, a failure or any kind of big change coming as being like a, a major event or a life changing event, and those happen very rare in people's lifespan. I was like I said, I would say 2014 was my life change, big life change, and outside of that, I think everything was pretty much smooth. But the things I worried about back then, I don't worry about right now because I found a way past them. I found a way to handle them, and just um, I guess invest more in finding ways to handle uh, anxiety, like whether it be calming music or meditating, praying, however you spiritually choose to do that. I think both are good. But yeah, I think the thing is just being in control. Because I mean, I understand that when I go in the gym and I lift weights, that I control the weight. I don't let it control me. I pull it down when I need to, and I push it back up when I need to. And the people that be doing, they're not gaining nothing when they do that. Which, yeah, I see it too much of, especially with these high school kids lifting weights. I see it all the time. They doing that stuff, and I'm like, nah, And then when I tell them to do it slow, and guess what? Yeah. Take the weight off. Take the weight off. Because you're really not that strong if you. got to do this in order to push it. No, you control it. You control yourself and how you handle different things. Whether it be um, not getting the financial aid you thought you were going to get, going on a deployment to a war zone you didn't expect coming, financial issues and possibly fraud at your previous employment, um, and just the pitfalls of just, trying to survive through pandemics, elections, recessions, um, you know, um, trying to maintain your blood pressure and all that is just it's hard, especially being black. You know that because if anything go wrong in this country, it's gonna hit us the worst.
That part.
So, you know, um, that's just the thing, man. Just I would just tell myself to remain calm. Your life is not over yet. You got plenty more time to go. So let's think about the solution. And let's get in a critical thinking mindset, not a panic mindset. Which I don't think I do that much. It takes real big things for me to react that way. But if you've seen some of the stuff I've been through, then I know you know some of them, but then you would understand how I could think that something major was about to happen when the free fall wasn't nearly as bad. So um, it's just about consistency, knowing who you are, and having a forward thinking mindset, like I was just saying earlier.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jared Holloway. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
All right, thank you, Kirsten. Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thank you.